Sir, I'm going to need to see your boarding pass again. The gate agent's voice carried across the terminal lounge, cutting through the low hum of travelers and overhead announcements. Her tone wasn't a question. It was a declaration wrapped in procedural authority, delivered loud enough that heads turned from 3 gates away. Marcus Thompson stood at the threshold of the jet bridge, carry-on in one hand, phone in the other, mid-email. He looked up. The agent, name tag reading Jennifer K., blocked the entrance with her body, one hand extended, palm up, expectant. I showed it at the podium, he said quietly. I need to verify something. Around them, passengers slowed. A businessman in a rumpled suit paused mid-stride. A mother with 2 children glanced over her shoulder. Jennifer's colleague, scanning passes at the podium, looked up but said nothing. Marcus reached into his blazer pocket and produced the boarding pass. First class, seat 2A, printed clearly. Jennifer took it, studied it. Her eyes moved from the paper to his face, then back to the paper. 10 seconds passed. 15. This doesn't look right, she said. The businessman stopped completely now. The mother whispered something to her daughter. Marcus waited. I'm going to need you to step aside. Before we continue, I would love to know where are you watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The overhead monitor blinked. Flight 447 to San Francisco. Boarding. Departure 11:47 a.m. Marcus glanced at his watch. 11:35. 12 minutes. Jennifer held his boarding pass at arm's length, tilting it under the fluorescent light as if checking for watermarks on currency. Her jaw was set, her shoulders squared, in that particular posture service workers adopt when they've decided something is wrong and are preparing to defend that decision. Ma'am, is there a specific issue? Marcus asked. His voice was even, professional, the kind of measured tone that comes from years of high-stakes negotiations and boardroom confrontations, where volume loses wars. The system flagged it. She tapped the pass with one manicured fingernail. And frankly, this ticket was purchased less than 6 hours ago. First class, full fare. Correct. For a last-minute booking like this, we have additional verification protocols. The word protocols landed with weight. Around them, the crowd thickened. Boarding had slowed to a trickle. Passengers craned necks. 2 teenagers had their phones out, not even pretending to hide it. Marcus nodded once. I understand you're doing your job. What do you need to verify? Jennifer's eyes narrowed. I need to confirm this ticket was purchased with a valid payment method, and that you, she paused, her gaze traveling deliberately from his face to his casual Friday blazer, his dark jeans, his leather sneakers, are the authorized passenger. A woman behind Marcus in the queue sighed audibly. Come on, we're going to miss the flight. Jennifer didn't turn. This will only take a moment, ma'am. But she didn't move. She stood there, boarding pass in hand, the jet bridge yawning empty behind her, while the clock ticked. 11:37. I have a meeting in San Francisco at 3, Marcus said, still calm, still measured. What specifically do you need from me? Step to the side, please. I'd prefer to understand the issue first. Sir, her voice sharpened. You're holding up the boarding process. Step aside, or I'll call security. The word security rippled through the gate area like a stone through still water. Phones rose, a flash, quickly hidden, then another. The businessman with the rumpled suit shifted his weight, frowning now. A man in a Patagonia vest muttered something to his companion. The mother pulled her children closer, but her eyes stayed fixed on the scene. Marcus took a slow breath. He didn't step aside. He also didn't escalate. He simply waited, his face a study in controlled composure, the kind of stillness that unnerves people because it refuses to give them the reaction they expect. Jennifer turned to her colleague at the podium. Call Ryan. The colleague hesitated, then reached for the phone. 11:39. Who's Ryan? Marcus asked. The duty manager. And what will Ryan verify that you can't verify right now with the system in front of you? Jennifer's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned her back to Marcus, shielding the computer screen, and began typing with aggressive staccato keystrokes. Behind Marcus, the line had grown. 15 people, now 20, all with confirmed boarding passes for first class and premium economy. Some checked their watches. Others exchanged glances. A few leaned out of line, trying to see what was happening. A voice from the back. "Is there a problem?" Jennifer didn't look up. "We're resolving an issue. Please be patient." But patience was thinning, the clock was ticking, and Marcus, standing perfectly still in the center of an expanding circle of attention, checked his phone one more time. One new email. Subject line, "Board meeting agenda, final." He read the first line. "Marcus, confirming your presentation at 3 p.m. Pacific. The investors are eager to hear the Q4 strategy." He slipped the phone back into his pocket. 11:41. 6 minutes to departure. The duty manager, Ryan, mid-40s, receding hairline, polo shirt with the airline logo, appeared from a side corridor, moving with the brisk efficiency of someone used to cleaning up messes. He approached Jennifer, who leaned in and whispered something. Ryan nodded, glanced at Marcus, then at the boarding pass still in Jennifer's hand. "Sir, I'm Ryan Mitchell, duty manager. Can I ask you to step over here for a moment?" He gestured to a small alcove near the windows, away from the gate. "I'd prefer to resolve this here," Marcus said. "It'll just be easier for everyone if we—" "I've done nothing wrong. I have a valid ticket. I'd like to know why I'm being singled out." Ryan's smile tightened. "No one's singling anyone out, sir. This is standard procedure for certain situations." "What situation?" Ryan didn't answer. Instead, he took the boarding pass from Jennifer and examined it himself, running his thumb over the barcode as if testing its authenticity by touch. The teenage boys were definitely recording now. One held his phone low, near his hip. The other stood behind him, providing cover. Neither looked away. 11:43. 4 minutes. Marcus glanced at the jet bridge. Empty. No one boarding. The flight attendants inside the aircraft would be checking their watches, running mental calculations about pushback times and air traffic slots. Ryan handed the boarding pass back to Jennifer and pulled out his own phone. He stepped 3 feet away, turning his back, and made a call. His voice was low but audible in fragments. "Yeah, first class, need secondary, just want to confirm." The crowd watched. Marcus stood, and the clock ticked down. 11:44. Jennifer looked at him, and for just a second something flickered in her expression. Doubt, maybe, or the first hint that this was spiraling beyond her control. Marcus caught her eye. He didn't smile, didn't frown. He simply held her gaze. Then, quietly, almost to himself, he said, 12 minutes. Ryan ended his call. He turned back, his face unreadable. The overhead monitor refreshed. Flight 447, final boarding. And Marcus glanced at the clock one more time. Then he smiled. Just a little. The phones came out in a wave. Not all at once. There was no coordinated signal, no moment of collective decision. But within 30 seconds of Ryan's return, at least 7 devices were angled toward the gate, lenses focused, recording indicators glowing soft red in the terminal's fluorescent wash. A woman in yoga pants nudged her husband. He pulled his phone from his pocket without question. A college-aged girl with oversized headphones lowered them to her neck and opened her camera app. The businessman in the rumpled suit, who'd been frowning since Jennifer first stopped Marcus, tapped his screen twice and began filming. No one announced what they were doing. No one needed to. This was the choreography of the modern witness, silent, distributed, unstoppable. The teenage boy with the low-angle shot was the first to upload. His thumb moved in practiced swipes. Trim, caption, tag, post. The video went live on 3 platforms simultaneously. Gate agent stops black man from boarding first class. Watch what happens. Within 90 seconds, the view counter ticked past 500, then 1,000, then 3,000. The girl with the headphones posted hers 10 seconds later, her caption shorter but sharper. "This is why I always record. #traveling while black." Comments began populating before the video finished uploading. "I've seen this same thing at ATL." "They always do this." "Post the airline name." The businessman didn't post his video. He held his phone steady, recording everything, his face carved in stone. But his wife, standing beside him, did. She posted it to her Facebook with a single line. "Happening right now at Gate 34. This man has done nothing wrong." Her network wasn't large, 400 friends, mostly family and college acquaintances. But it didn't need to be. 3 of those friends shared it immediately. Then their friends shared it. The algorithms picked up the velocity, the engagement rate, the watch time. By 11:46, the #Flight447 was beginning to trend locally. Ryan, still on his phone, was oblivious. Jennifer, guarding the jet bridge, hadn't noticed. But Marcus had. He saw the phones, the angles, the quiet efficiency of documentation. He saw the woman in yoga pants whisper to her husband, saw the college girl zoom in, saw the businessman's rigid posture. He didn't acknowledge it, didn't play to it. He simply stood, waiting, while the invisible web expanded. A notification buzzed on someone's phone, then another, then a cascade of them, a soft collective hum of incoming messages and alerts. The man in the Patagonia vest checked his screen and blanked. "Holy shit," he muttered to his companion. "This is already on Twitter?" His companion leaned over. "Wait, seriously?" "Yeah, someone posted it 2 minutes ago. It's got like 8,000 views." They both looked up at Marcus, then at Jennifer, then back at the screen. The view count climbed. 12,000, 18,000. A notification arrived in the duty manager's email, an automated alert from the airline's social media monitoring team. He didn't see it. His phone was still pressed to his ear, still trying to verify something that didn't need verification. But in a glass-walled office 1,200 miles away, a crisis communications specialist saw the spike. She opened the first video, watched 15 seconds. Her jaw tightened. She picked up her desk phone and dialed the regional operations center. "We have a situation at Gate 34. It's going viral." At the gate, the crowd had stopped pretending not to watch. They were fully turned now, a semicircle of witnesses, phones raised, eyes locked. A flight attendant appeared at the door of the jet bridge, peering out. She saw the crowd, saw the phones, saw Ryan on the phone, and Jennifer standing rigid. She retreated back into the aircraft and said something to the captain. The view counters kept climbing. 25,000, 32,000. Someone added a location tag. Someone else tagged the airline's official account. A verified aviation blogger quote-tweeted the video with a single word, "Unacceptable." His 80,000 followers saw it instantly. The moment had escaped the gate. It was in the network now, racing through fiber optics and cell towers, bouncing off satellites, lighting up screens and living rooms and subway cars and office break rooms across 3 time zones. And at Gate 34, Marcus Thompson stood in the center of it all, perfectly still, while 12 minutes became 11, then 10, and the clock ticked down towards something none of them, except Marcus, had seen coming. Ryan ended his call and turned back to Marcus with the expression of a man who'd just been given instructions he didn't fully understand, but was obligated to follow. "Sir, I appreciate your patience." His tone had shifted, still professional, but now layered with something heavier, institutional weight. "I need to verify a few additional details before we can clear you to board." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "What details?" "Your identification and payment authorization." "I provided ID when I checked in." "I understand, but given the circumstances of this booking, Ryan glanced at his phone screen, reading from notes. A first-class ticket purchased at 5:47 a.m. this morning for an 11:47 departure, full fare, no loyalty program discount applied. We have protocols that require secondary verification. Protocols, Marcus repeated. Not a question, just the word, reflected back. Yes, sir. Per Section 431-B of our passenger verification standards, any ticket meeting certain flag criteria requires duty manager approval before boarding. The crowd leaned in. Someone coughed. The woman in yoga pants whispered to her husband again. They're really doing this. Marcus reached into his jacket and produced his driver's license and a black credit card. He handed both to Ryan with the same measured calm he'd maintained for the last 8 minutes. Ryan examined the license, compared the photo to Marcus's face, nodded once. Then he turned the credit card over, checking the signature strip, the embossed numbers. This is a corporate card, Ryan observed. Correct. Whose corporation? Marcus paused, just for a beat. Long enough for the question to hang in the air, long enough for its implications to settle over everyone watching. Mine, he said. Ryan's eyebrow lifted a fraction. You own a company? I do. May I ask what company? You may, but I'm not sure what that has to do with boarding a flight I've paid for. Ryan's smile was thin now, professional courtesy stretched to transparency. Sir, I'm just trying to establish that this payment method is legitimate and that you're authorized to use it. The card is in my name, the ticket is in my name, the ID is in my name. Marcus's voice hadn't risen, but something in it had sharpened. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm following protocol. Protocol based on what trigger? Ryan hesitated. It was brief, maybe 2 seconds, but everyone saw it. The duty manager, who'd been so confident a moment ago, faltered. Jennifer, still guarding the jet bridge, spoke up. The system flagged it. That's all we need to know. The system, Marcus said, flags transactions based on algorithms, and algorithms are built on assumptions. I'd like to know what assumption flagged me. Ryan cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, we don't have time to debate our security protocols. If you'd like to board this flight, I need you to cooperate with the verification process. I am cooperating. I've provided everything you've asked for. Then you'll have no problem waiting while I make one more call. 11:48. The flight was scheduled to depart 1 minute ago. Marcus glanced at the jet bridge, still empty. Then at the aircraft door, where the flight attendant had reappeared, now speaking urgently into a handheld radio. Ryan stepped away again, phone to his ear. This time his voice carried slightly more. Yes, I have his ID. Thompson, Marcus Thompson. Corporate card, personal name. No, he's refusing to step aside. I haven't refused anything, Marcus said, loudly enough for the phone to catch it. Ryan turned his back completely. The phones kept recording. The view counts kept climbing. Somewhere in the network, a local news producer saw the video and forwarded it to the assignment desk with a one-word subject line, developing. At the podium, Jennifer's colleague, a younger man who'd been silent until now, leaned toward her and spoke quietly. Jen, maybe we should just... No, her voice was sharp. We do this by the book. The book says verify ID and payment. We've done that. The book also says discretion, and my discretion says something's off. The colleague looked at Marcus, then back at Jennifer. He said nothing more. A gate agent from the neighboring gate, Flight 295 to Phoenix, wandered over, curious. She took in the scene. The crowd, the phones, Marcus standing calm in the center, Ryan on the phone, Jennifer blocking the jet bridge. What's going on? She asked. Jennifer spoke without looking at her. Verification hold. On what? First-class passenger. Ticket flags. The Phoenix agent frowned. Did he pass ID check? Yes, but... Then what are you holding him for? That's not your concern. The Phoenix agent studied Marcus for a moment. Then she studied Jennifer. Something in her expression shifted. Recognition, maybe, or disappointment. She shook her head once and walked away, but not before she pulled out her own phone. Ryan returned, his face now showing the first signs of strain. "Sir, I'm going to need to see a secondary form of identification." "Such as?" "Passport, if you have it." "I don't carry my passport for domestic flights." "Then another credit card, one with your photo on it." "Credit cards don't have photos." "A work ID badge, then." Marcus paused. The game was becoming clear now. Each request designed to extend the delay, to add another hurdle, to force frustration or compliance, or both. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thin leather wallet. From it, he produced a corporate ID badge. No lanyard, just the card itself, matte black with silver text. Ryan took it, read it. His expression flickered. Confusion, then something else. "This says CEO, Ryan said slowly. "Because I am." "Of what company?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced past Ryan, past Jennifer, toward the aircraft. Through the open door, he could see the flight deck. The captain was visible in profile, leaning back in his seat, checking something on the overhead panel. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was quieter, but somehow it carried further. "Of the company that owns this plane." The words landed like a stone in still water. Ripples. Silence. Then chaos. Ryan's face went blank. Jennifer's mouth opened slightly. The colleague at the podium straightened so fast he nearly knocked over his monitor. The crowd, which had been watching with detached interest, suddenly focused with laser intensity. Phones zoomed in. The businessman in the rumpled suit said very clearly, "Oh shit." Ryan looked at the ID badge again, read it more carefully this time. His hand began to shake, just slightly. The badge read, Marcus Thompson, Chief Executive Officer, Apex Aviation Holdings. And below that, in smaller text, Fleet Operations, Corporate Services, Strategic Partnerships. Ryan's face drained of color. Jennifer, still at the jet bridge, hadn't seen the badge. "Ryan, what does it say?" Ryan didn't answer her. He was staring at Marcus now, his mind clearly racing through implications, consequences, policy manuals, employment contracts. "Sir, he began, his voice unsteady. I didn't realize." "You didn't ask," Marcus said, still calm, still measured. "You assumed." "No, I was just following protocol." "Yes, you've mentioned that." Marcus took one step forward, not aggressive, just closing distance. "Tell me, Ryan, what does Section 431B say about verification, the actual text?"
Ryan swallowed. It says we verify identity and payment authorization when flags are triggered. And what triggers those flags? Multiple factors. Purchase timing, fare class, payment type, and passenger profile. Silence. "Does the algorithm," Marcus continued, his voice now carrying a professor's patience, "consider the passenger's appearance, their clothing, their race?" "No," Ryan said quickly. Too quickly. "Absolutely not." "Then why," Marcus asked, "was I the only first-class passenger stopped today?" Ryan had no answer. Jennifer, finally understanding that something had gone very wrong, stepped away from the jet bridge. "Ryan, what's happening?" But Ryan was already moving, pulling out his radio, his hands fumbling with the controls. The flight attendant at the aircraft door heard the transmission, and her eyes went wide. She turned and disappeared into the plane. 30 seconds later, the captain appeared in the doorway. He took one look at the scene, the crowd, the phones, Ryan's pale face, Marcus standing patient and still, and his jaw tightened. He stepped into the jet bridge. And Marcus checked his watch one final time. 11:51. The captain was tall, silver-haired, mid-50s, with the kind of rigid posture that comes from military training and 30 years of command authority. His uniform was immaculate, 4 stripes gleaming on his shoulders. He walked with purpose, his steps measured and deliberate. When he reached the gate, he didn't address Marcus. He addressed Ryan. "What's the delay, Mitchell?" Ryan's mouth opened, closed, Opened again. Captain Hendricks, there's a verification issue with a passenger. Hendricks turned to Marcus. His gaze was assessing, clinical, the kind of look that sizes up a person in 3 seconds and files them into a predetermined category. You're holding up my departure, Hendricks said. It wasn't a question. I'm trying to board, Marcus replied. They're preventing me. Do you have a valid ticket? I do. ID. Provided. Twice. Hendricks turned back to Ryan. Then what's the problem? Ryan hesitated. He glanced at Jennifer, who'd gone very quiet. Then at the ID badge still in his hand. He seemed to be calculating something. Risk, exposure, hierarchy. Sir, Ryan said carefully, this passenger purchased a first-class ticket early this morning. Last-minute booking. The system flagged it for secondary verification per our protocols. You verified the ID? Yes. Payment cleared? Yes. Then he boards. Hendricks said it with finality, already turning to leave. Captain, Jennifer's voice stopped him. With respect, we have discretion to refuse boarding if we suspect fraudulent documentation. Hendricks turned slowly. You suspect fraud? I suspect irregularities. Based on what evidence? Jennifer hesitated. This was the moment. The fulcrum. She could step back now, admit the stop was unwarranted, apologize. Or she could double down. She doubled down. Based on the fact that this ticket was purchased with a corporate card at 5:47 a.m., the passenger has no checked bags, and when I asked him about his travel purpose, he was evasive. I wasn't evasive, Marcus said quietly. You didn't ask about my travel purpose. You didn't volunteer it. I'm not required to. Hendricks held up a hand. Miss, he glanced at her name tag. Miss Kennedy, unless you have specific evidence of fraudulent documentation, this passenger boards. We're already 12 minutes past departure, and every minute costs us our slot. I want to see proof of purchase, Jennifer said. Her voice had taken on a desperate edge now, the sound of someone who knows they're losing but can't stop themselves from fighting. Real-time verification from the credit card company. Marcus pulled out his phone, unlocked it with his thumb, opened his banking app. The screen showed a transaction from 5:51 a.m., Apex Ovation Corporate Services, $2,847, approved.
Jennifer leaned in, squinting. That could be photoshopped. The crowd, which had been silent, erupted. Are you serious? Someone said. This is insane, another voice added. The businessman in the rumpled suit stepped forward. I'm a witness. I've been watching this entire interaction. This man has been nothing but cooperative. He's shown ID, payment, everything you've asked. What you're doing is profiling, plain and simple. Jennifer's face flushed. Sir, step back. This doesn't concern you. It concerns everyone here. The businessman gestured at the crowd. We all saw it. We all recorded it. Hendricks looked at the phones, at the crowd, and for the first time, something like concern crossed his features. Captain, Marcus said, his voice still calm, may I ask you a question? Hendricks met his eyes. What? In your 30 years of flying, and I'm guessing it's about 30, how many times have you personally witnessed a first-class passenger being stopped at the gate for secondary verification? Hendricks didn't answer immediately, but his silence was answer enough. I'll tell you, Marcus continued, it's rare, very rare, usually reserved for passengers exhibiting suspicious behavior, traveling on high-risk routes, or flagged by federal watch lists. I've done none of those things, so I'll ask you directly, why do you think I was stopped? Hendricks's jaw tightened. I don't make assumptions about my passengers. But your gate agents do. The words hung there, sharp and undeniable. A small voice broke the tension. A child, maybe 7 years old, tugged on her mother's hand. Mama, why won't they let him on the plane? The mother, the same woman who'd been watching since the beginning, knelt down. Because, baby, sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes they judge people by how they look instead of who they are. The child processed this. That's not nice. No, baby, it's not. The mother stood and looked directly at Jennifer. You should be ashamed. Jennifer's face went rigid. Ma'am, you don't understand the situation. I understand perfectly. The mother's voice was steady, controlled. I've been black in America for 43 years. I understand exactly what this is. Someone started clapping. Just one person at first, then another, then a ripple of applause that spread through the crowd. Not loud, not aggressive, just steady, unmistakable support. Hendricks looked at Ryan. Clear him to board, now. Ryan nodded quickly, already moving toward the podium to override the hold in the system. But Marcus raised a hand. Wait. Before I board, Marcus said, I want something on record. Captain Hendricks, do you believe this stop was justified? Hendricks's face was unreadable. I believe my staff followed procedure. That's not what I asked. A long pause. Somewhere in the terminal, a gate announcement echoed. A baby cried. A suitcase wheel squeaked. No, Hendricks said finally. I don't believe it was justified. Marcus nodded once. Thank you for your honesty. He turned to Jennifer. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Jennifer's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her colleague at the podium looked away, unable to meet anyone's eyes. From the back of the crowd, someone offered. Here. An older gentleman, white-haired and leaning on a cane, pushed forward. He held out a bottle of water. You've been standing there 15 minutes. Thought you might be thirsty. Marcus took the water with a nod. Thank you, sir. My son, the man said quietly, is about your age. He travels for work, too. He's been stopped 3 times this year. He glanced at Jennifer. Always the same reason, even if they don't say it. The old man shuffled back into the crowd. Marcus opened the water and took a slow sip. He wasn't performing, wasn't grandstanding. He was simply a man, thirsty, taking a moment.
The narrator's voice, if it were present, might have observed, this is how bias works, not with malice always, but with routine, with assumptions so embedded they feel like instinct, with procedures that give cover to prejudice. And it happens every day, in airports and offices, in stores and schools, in 1,000 small moments that add up to a single unmistakable message. You don't belong here. Marcus capped the water bottle. Hendricks gestured toward the jet bridge. Shall we? But Marcus didn't move, not yet. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a slim, embossed business card. He handed it to Ryan. Ryan took it automatically, then looked down. His face went from pale to white. The card read, Marcus Thompson, Chief Executive Officer, Apex Aviation Holdings. And below that, a phone number, a direct line. Call that number, Marcus said quietly. Ask for Linda Vasquez. She's my Chief Operating Officer. She'll verify my identity and my authority within this company. He paused. And then she'll begin an immediate audit of today's incident. Ryan's hand trembled. Jennifer, seeing the card, took one involuntary step backward. Marcus looked at Hendricks. Captain, before we depart, I need that call made. I need verification recorded. Not for me, for every passenger who's been stopped like this and didn't have the resources to fight back. Hendricks nodded slowly. Understood. Ryan pulled out his phone. His fingers fumbled with the screen. He dialed. The crowd waited. And somewhere in a high-rise office building in Chicago, a phone rang. The call connected on the second ring. Ryan held the phone to his ear, his free hand gripping the edge of the podium for support. The crowd had gone completely silent now.
Even the phones seemed to record more quietly, as if the devices themselves understood the weight of the moment. "Yes, hello? This is Ryan Mitchell, duty manager at—" He paused, swallowed. "At Gate 34, Terminal B. I need to speak with Linda Vasquez regarding a passenger verification." A pause. Ryan's eyes darted to Marcus, then away. "Yes, I'll hold." 15 seconds of silence. The hold music was just audible. Classical, something orchestral. Inappropriate somehow, like a wedding march at a funeral. Then Ryan straightened. "Ms. Vasquez?" "Yes, ma'am. I have a passenger here, Marcus Thompson, who claims to be—" He stopped abruptly. His face changed. "Yes, ma'am. Yes, he provided ID, and a corporate card, and his voice dropped. "An executive badge." "Yes, ma'am." Another pause. Longer this time. "I understand. Yes, ma'am. He's right here." Ryan extended the phone toward Marcus with a hand that had lost all steadiness. "She wants to speak with you." "Marcus, good morning." From the speaker, a woman's voice carried just loud enough for the nearest passengers to hear. "Marcus, what the hell is going on? My alert system just lit up like a Christmas tree. There are videos all over social media." "I'm aware," Marcus said calmly. "I've been detained at Gate 34 for the last 17 minutes. They flagged my ticket and refused boarding pending verification." "Verification of what? You own the damn—" Linda stopped herself. Her voice shifted, became crisper, more formal. The voice of someone who's just realized this call would be documented, possibly subpoenaed, definitely recorded. "Mr. Thompson, can you confirm your employee ID number for the record?" "Alpha Echo 77429. And your position?" "Chief Executive Officer, Apex Aviation Holdings." "And the nature of your travel today?" "Boarding meeting in San Francisco. Quarterly review with investors." "And your ticketed flight?" "Flight 447, Seat 2A." A brief pause. Then Linda's voice came back, crisp and decisive. "Put the duty manager back on." Marcus handed the phone to Ryan like it might explode. "Yes, ma'am." "What, ma'am?" What followed could be heard in fragments, Linda's voice sharp enough to cut through. "CEO of the parent company. Every aircraft in this terminal personally authorized to travel on any flight, any seat, any time. Corporate policy you should have been trained on. Serious questions about how this was handled." Ryan's face had progressed from pale to gray. He nodded mechanically. "Yes, ma'am, I understand. Yes, ma'am, right away." He ended the call. For a moment, no one moved. The gate area had become a tableau, every person frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. Ryan set the phone down carefully, as if it might shatter. He looked at Marcus. "Sir, we've confirmed your identity. You're cleared to board." "Confirmed," Marcus repeated. "That's an interesting word. Suggests there was doubt to begin with." "Sir, I apologize for any—" Marcus held up a hand. "Don't apologize to me, not yet." He turned to face the crowd, his voice carrying to every corner of the gate area. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this delay. You've all been inconvenienced because of a situation that should never have occurred. Your patience has been noted, and your support," he nodded toward the businessman, the mother, the old man with the cane, "will not be forgotten." He turned back to Ryan. "Now, before I board this aircraft, I want to be very clear about what happens next. Linda Vasquez is already initiating a formal incident review, but I'm going to outline the process here, publicly, so everyone understands." Ryan's mouth opened. No sound came out. Marcus continued, his tone still measured, but carrying unmistakable authority now. "First, all video footage from gate cameras will be pulled. Second, every passenger who filmed this interaction will be contacted and asked to provide their recordings.
Third, a complete audit of verification stops over the past 6 months will be conducted, specifically examining which passengers were stopped, their demographics, and the stated reasons for those stops. Jennifer, still standing near the jet bridge, had gone completely rigid. Fourth, Marcus said, every employee involved in this incident will be interviewed. Statements will be recorded. Training records will be reviewed. And fifth, he paused, letting the moment breathe, recommendations will be made regarding employment status, remedial training, or both. The crowd shifted. Several people exchanged glances. The phones kept recording. Marcus pulled a business card from his wallet. Different from the first, this one simpler, with just a name and email address, and handed it to the businessman in the rumpled suit. You said you witnessed this. Would you be willing to provide a statement? The businessman took the card. Absolutely. Thank you. Marcus turned to the mother. And you? Yes, my daughter should see that speaking up matters. One by one, Marcus worked through the crowd. The old man with the cane, the woman in yoga pants, the college girl with headphones, the man in the Patagonia vest, even the gate agent from the Phoenix flight who'd wandered back to watch the conclusion. Each took a card. Each agreed to provide testimony. Hendricks, who'd been standing to the side, arms crossed, cleared his throat. Mr. Thompson, we need to depart. We've lost our slot. I'll need to request priority clearance from Tower. Marcus nodded. Of course, Captain. One more thing, though. He turned to Ryan. I need you to make an announcement, gate-wide. Explain to these passengers why they were delayed and who is responsible. Ryan's face crumpled. Sir, I don't think... It's not a request. Ryan looked at Hendricks. The captain's expression was stone. No help was coming. Ryan picked up the microphone at the podium. His hand shook as he pressed the button. The PA system crackled to life, and his voice, thin, strained, filled the gate area.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need to apologize for the delay to Flight 447. There was a verification issue that should not have occurred. The passenger in question has been fully cleared, and we take full responsibility for any inconvenience or distress caused by our handling of this situation. We apologize. He set the microphone down. The silence that followed was profound. Then someone started clapping. The businessman. Then the mother. Then the old man with the cane. Within seconds, the entire crowd was applauding. Not for the apology, but for the accountability. For the fact that something had been acknowledged, documented, made real. Marcus didn't acknowledge the applause. He simply picked up his carry-on and turned toward the jet bridge. Captain Hendricks, he said, shall we? Hendricks nodded and gestured toward the aircraft. After you, Mr. Thompson. But Jennifer was still standing there, blocking the entrance, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. Anger, shame, fear, defiance. Marcus stopped in front of her. Miss Kennedy. She met his eyes. Hers were wet now, though whether from tears or rage was impossible to tell. You asked me earlier what company I worked for, Marcus said quietly. The answer is yours. I own this airline. I own the planes you board, the systems you use, the policies you follow. I hired the executives who hired the managers who hired you. And in about 6 hours, those same executives will be sitting in my office explaining how one of our employees could treat a passenger, any passenger, with such naked presumption. Jennifer's breath hitched. But here's what I want you to understand, Marcus continued, his voice softening just slightly. This isn't about revenge. It's about correction. It's about making sure this doesn't happen again. Not to me, not to anyone. He stepped past her into the jet bridge. Jennifer remained frozen for a moment. Then her knees buckled slightly, and she reached out to steady herself against the wall. Her colleague at the podium came over, put a hand on her shoulder. She shook it off. Ryan stood alone, staring at nothing, his phone still in his hand.
and the crowd began to disperse, boarding now, moving through the jet bridge in a quiet, orderly line. But as they passed Jennifer, several passengers made eye contact, said nothing, just looked at her. One woman paused and spoke softly. "I hope you learn from this." Jennifer didn't respond. The aircraft cabin was standard first class, 8 seats in a 1-1 configuration, leather upholstery in charcoal gray, ambient lighting set to a calming blue. Marcus stowed his carry-on in the overhead bin and settled into seat 2A, the window seat on the left side. Across the aisle in 2B, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on her nose looked up from her tablet. "Was that you at the gate?" Marcus nodded. "Good for you," she said quietly. "I hope they actually do something about it." "They will," Marcus said. Not a boast, a statement of fact. The woman returned to her tablet, but a small smile played at the corners of her mouth. As passengers filed in, several paused at Marcus's row. A nod here, a quiet thank you there. One man, middle-aged and wearing a Navy veteran cap, stopped completely. 20 years ago, that was me, he said. They didn't let me on. Said my ticket looked suspicious. I missed my father's funeral. He extended his hand. Thank you for standing up. Marcus shook his hand. I'm sorry that happened to you. Maybe it won't happen to someone else now. The veteran moved on. Hendricks appeared in the cabin, moving through his pre-flight checks with crisp efficiency. When he reached Marcus's row, he paused. Mr. Thompson, I want you to know that I'll be filing my own report about what happened today. The conduct of my ground crew reflects on my flight, and it was unacceptable.
Marcus looked up. Captain, I appreciate that, but I need you to understand something. This isn't about punishment. It's about systems. Your gate agents didn't wake up this morning planning to discriminate. They followed protocols that are embedded with bias. Those protocols need to change. Hendricks considered this. And if they don't? Then we change the people who write them. The captain nodded once and continued his walkthrough. The cabin door sealed, the jet bridge retracted, and at 12:09 p.m., 22 minutes late, Flight 447 pushed back from the gate. But back in Terminal B, the consequences were already cascading. Ryan Mitchell sat in a small office near the security checkpoint, across a desk from 2 representatives from Human Resources. Between them lay a laptop playing video footage from 3 angles: gate cameras, passenger phones, and the airport's own security system. Walk us through your decision-making, the lead HR rep said. Her name was Patricia Chen, and her expression suggested she'd already reached conclusions. Ryan stumbled through an explanation. Protocols, flags, procedures. The words sounded hollow even to him. Patricia stopped the video at timestamp 11:43, the moment Ryan took Marcus's executive badge and read it. This is where you learned he was the CEO. Yes. And you still delayed him another 8 minutes? I needed to verify. You needed to verify the identity of the man who signs my paycheck? Patricia's voice was ice. The man whose face is on the company website, in the annual report, in the training materials you completed 6 months ago? Ryan had no answer. Patricia closed the laptop. Mr. Mitchell, effective immediately, you're suspended pending the outcome of a full investigation. You're required to surrender your badge and access credentials. You'll receive written notification of next steps within 72 hours. Ryan's face went slack. Suspended? But I was following. You followed nothing, Patricia interrupted. You profiled a passenger. You ignored contrary evidence, and you publicly humiliated the CEO of your own company. Those are the facts. Now leave your badge on the desk and exit the secure area. Ryan complied, hands shaking, and walked out into the terminal as a civilian for the first time in 6 years. Jennifer Kennedy's interview was shorter. She'd been escorted to the same office 30 minutes after Ryan. The video played again. This time Patricia focused on Jennifer's words. This section isn't for you. This doesn't look right. I want to see proof of purchase.
That could be photoshopped. When the video ended, Patricia folded her hands. Miss Kennedy, in your 3 years with this airline, you've received 2 commendations for customer service. Your performance reviews have been consistently positive. So help me understand what happened today. Jennifer's voice was tight. The system flagged the ticket. The system flags dozens of tickets every day. Most of them clear within seconds. Why did you escalate this one? Silence. Miss Kennedy, I need an answer. Jennifer's composure finally cracked. Because it felt wrong. A last-minute first-class ticket, corporate card, no bags. He just didn't seem like. She stopped. Patricia waited. Like what? Patricia prompted. Jennifer closed her eyes. Like a first-class passenger. Based on what criteria? I don't know. Instinct. Experience. Experience that told you a black man in casual business attire couldn't possibly afford first class? That kind of experience? The words hung in the air like smoke. Jennifer's face flushed deep red. That's not, I didn't mean. Intention doesn't matter here, Patricia said. Impact does. And the impact is that you humiliated a passenger, created a viral incident, and exposed this company to massive liability. All because your instinct told you something that your training, your procedures, and every piece of actual evidence contradicted.
Patricia opened a folder and slid a document across the desk. This is a notice of termination, effective immediately. You have the right to appeal, but I'll be frank. With video evidence this clear and public, I don't expect that appeal to succeed. Jennifer stared at the document. Her hands didn't move to take it. You can collect your personal belongings from your locker, Patricia continued. Security will escort you. Your final paycheck will be mailed within 10 business days. Jennifer stood on autopilot, her face blank, and walked to the door. As she reached for the handle, Patricia spoke once more. Miss Kennedy, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you made assumptions based on biases you didn't even know you had. But in this industry, at this company, there's no room for that. I hope you learned from this. Jennifer left without responding. 37,000 feet above Kansas, Marcus opened his laptop and logged in to the company's secure network. 3 emails were already waiting from Linda Vasquez. The first detailed immediate actions: ground crew retraining, system flag audits, passenger notification protocols. The second outlined long-term reforms: implicit bias workshops, demographic tracking of verification stops, third-party oversight. The third email was brief. Marcus, the board meeting at 3 p.m. just got more interesting. Every investor will have seen the videos by now. Be ready to turn a crisis into opportunity. Show them how we respond. L. Marcus typed a quick reply. Already drafting the presentation. See you at 2:30. He opened a new document and began outlining the plan. Not a defensive explanation, not damage control, a blueprint for systemic change. Section 1. Acknowledgement. What happened, why it happened, who it hurt. Section 2. Immediate accountability. Actions taken, people held responsible, transparency maintained. Section 3. Institutional reform. Policy changes, training overhauls, measurable outcomes. Section 4. Industry leadership. Sharing the blueprint with competitors, raising the standard across aviation, making this moment matter beyond one company. He worked steadily for an hour, fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Around him, passengers dozed, read, or worked on their own devices. The flight attendant came by once to offer refreshments. Marcus accepted coffee, black, and returned to his document. By the time they began their descent into San Francisco, he had 17 pages of concrete proposals, each with assigned ownership, timelines, and success metrics. The woman across the aisle glanced over. Working on something important? Marcus saved the document, trying to make sure today meant something. She nodded. I think it already does. My daughter texted me during the flight, said your video's on the news. Marcus pulled out his phone, still in airplane mode, and switched it on as the wheels touched down. 43 notifications, texts from board members, executives, friends, former colleagues, 3 missed calls from the company's general counsel, and a news alert from a major network. Airline CEOs stopped at gate. Viral video sparks conversation about travel while black. The plane taxied to the gate. Passengers gathered belongings, checked watches, prepared for deplaning in the usual choreographed ritual. As Marcus stood and retrieved his carry-on, Hendrix's voice came over the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the entire crew, I want to thank you for your patience during our delay this morning. I also want to personally thank passenger Marcus Thompson for handling a difficult situation with grace and integrity. What happened today should never have happened, and we're committed to ensuring it doesn't happen again. Welcome to San Francisco." Spontaneous applause broke out in the cabin. Marcus didn't acknowledge it. He simply waited his turn, exited the aircraft with a nod to the flight attendants, and walked into the terminal.
His phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Your 2:30 just moved to 2. Investors want to hear directly from you. They're calling it Crisis Response Assessment. Translation, they want to see if you can lead through this." Marcus smiled slightly and typed back, "Not a crisis, an opportunity. See you soon." He headed for ground transportation, passing a television monitor showing CNN. His own face looked back at him from the screen, a still frame from one of the videos frozen mid-conversation at the gate. The Chiron read, "CEO confronts discrimination. This is about systems, not revenge." Marcus kept walking. The real work was just beginning. The Apex Aviation Holdings headquarters occupied floors 30 through 35 of a glass tower in downtown San Francisco's financial district. Marcus arrived at 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes ahead of the accelerated meeting time, and took the executive elevator to the 34th floor. The elevator doors opened to controlled chaos. Linda Vasquez stood in the reception area, tablet in one hand, phone in the other, coordinating with what appeared to be half a dozen people simultaneously. When she saw Marcus, she ended both conversations with efficient goodbyes and crossed to him in 4 strides. "Welcome to the storm," she said. "How bad?" "Depends on your definition. PR is fielding 300 media requests. Legal is assessing liability exposure. HR just terminated 2 employees and suspended 3 others pending review. And the board," she gestured toward the conference room, "is ready to either crucify you for creating a public incident or canonize you for how you handled it, possibly both." Marcus set down his carry-on. "What's your read?" Linda met his eyes. She was 52, Puerto Rican, 27 years in aviation, and the sharpest operational mind Marcus had ever worked with. When she spoke, it was with the authority of someone who'd earned respect through competence, not volume. "My read? You did exactly what needed to be done. You exposed a systemic failure, documented it in real time, and gave us no choice but to fix it. Some of the board will hate that you created exposure. Most will recognize you turned potential catastrophe into accountability. Either way," she checked her watch, "you have 11 minutes to frame the narrative before they frame it for you." Marcus nodded. "The presentation ready?" "Loaded and waiting. I added slides on financial impact, legal precedent, and competitor response. 3 board members have already pledged support. 2 are skeptical. 4 are waiting to see how you handle the room. And the investors? Fascinated. They want to see leadership under pressure. Give them that, and the Q4 numbers won't matter as much." Marcus picked up his bag. "Then let's give them leadership." They walked through the executive suite together, passing offices where staff worked behind glass walls, their eyes tracking Marcus with expressions ranging from support to curiosity to carefully hidden concern. In the legal department, Marcus paused. Through the glass, he could see General Counsel David Kim in a conference room with 3 associates, documents spread across the table. A video paused on the wall monitor, frozen on Jennifer Kennedy's face as she said, "This doesn't look right." Marcus knocked once and entered. David looked up. "Marcus, we need to talk about exposure." "How significant?" "Potentially very. We have documented discrimination by company employees against the company CEO. The optics alone create massive civil rights liability. If you decide to pursue action, I won't, Marcus said. Or if other passengers who witnessed it decide to, David stopped. What? I'm not pursuing legal action against the company. That would be suing myself. But other passengers could file discrimination claims based on what they witnessed, class action territory. If they treat their own CEO like this, how do they treat regular passengers?
Marcus considered this. Then we get ahead of it. We don't wait for lawsuits. We initiate our own investigation, publish the findings, and implement reforms before anyone files. We make this about accountability, not liability. David exchanged glances with his associates. That's actually not a terrible strategy. Voluntary disclosure, proactive remediation. It could work as a defense if claims do urge. Make it happen, Marcus said. I want a full legal review completed within 30 days. Every verification stop in the past year, demographic breakdown, statistical analysis. If there's a pattern, I want it documented and addressed. And if we find systemic bias, then we fix it, publicly, with specifics. David nodded slowly. I'll have a preliminary report by next week. Marcus left the legal department and continued to the conference room. Linda walked beside him, briefing as they moved. 3 of the investors are on video link from New York, 2 more from London. The rest are here in person. Sarah Cheng is moderating. She's sympathetic but professional. Expect hard questions from Robert Fisk about reputational risk and from Jennifer Walters about operational disruption. The others will follow their lead. They reached the conference room doors. Through the glass, Marcus could see the board members taking their seats. 9 in person, 5 on the video wall. 14 people who collectively controlled the future of a company that operated 72 aircraft across 4 continents. Linda touched his arm. Marcus, for what it's worth, I'm proud of how you handled this. He smiled. We're not done yet. No, but you're on the right side of it. Marcus opened the door and entered. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to him, some sympathetic, some assessing, some openly calculating the political implications of what had happened and what would happen next. Sarah Cheng, board chair and former Secretary of Transportation, sat at the head of the table. She was 70, sharp-eyed, and possessed the kind of institutional authority that didn't require volume. Marcus, she said, please sit. I think we're all eager to hear your perspective on today's events. Marcus took his seat at the opposite end of the table. Linda sat to his right, tablet ready. The presentation loaded on the wall screen behind him. Before we begin, Sarah continued, I want to acknowledge that what happened to you today was unacceptable. Speaking personally and on behalf of this board, I apologize. Thank you, Sarah, but I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to discuss solutions. Robert Fisk, a hedge fund manager from New York appearing via video, leaned forward on screen. With respect, Marcus, I'm not sure solutions is the right frame. We have a PR crisis. Your face is on every news channel. The hashtag Flight 447 is trending worldwide. Our stock is down 3%. That's not a solutions conversation. It's a damage control conversation. Marcus met his gaze through the screen. Robert, our stock is down because investors are uncertain about how we'll respond. If we respond with damage control, defensive, reactive, minimizing, then yes, we have a crisis. But if we respond with leadership, transparent, accountable, transformative, we have an opportunity. An opportunity? Jennifer Walters, a venture capitalist from Palo Alto, raised an eyebrow. To do what, exactly? Marcus clicked to the first slide. It showed a simple title, From Incident to Industry Standard, a Blueprint for Systemic Change. An opportunity, Marcus said, to become the first major airline to publicly audit our bias protocols, publish the results, and implement measurable reforms. An opportunity to set a standard that our competitors will have no choice but to follow. An opportunity to turn one bad moment into a decade of better practice. He advanced to the next slide. Immediate actions taken. As of this morning, we've implemented the following. First, all gate agents and duty managers involved in today's incident have been suspended or terminated pending investigation. Second, we've initiated a comprehensive review of all verification stops over the past 12 months with demographic tracking. Third, we've engaged an independent civil rights organization to audit our policies and recommend reforms. Fourth, we've established a passenger advocacy hotline for anyone who believes they've been discriminated against. And fifth, he paused, I've personally committed to delivering a public video statement within 72 hours, taking responsibility and outlining our path forward. The room was silent. Marcus continued. Now, let's talk about what happens next. He clicked through slides methodically, each one building on the last. Financial projections for training implementation, legal frameworks for accountability, operational timelines for policy rollout, PR strategies for narrative control. The data was comprehensive, the plan was concrete, and most importantly, the tone was neither defensive nor apologetic. It was decisive. When he reached the slide titled Measurable Outcomes, 18-month Targets, he slowed down. Here's what success looks like, Marcus said. Within 6 months, verification stop disparities reduced by 40%. Within 12 months, all ground staff complete implicit bias training with certification requirements. Within 18 months, we publish an annual transparency report showing demographic data on every customer interaction that involves discretionary authority. And we do all of this publicly, with third-party verification, so there's no question about accountability. Sarah Cheng leaned back in her chair, studying him. This is ambitious. It has to be. Half measures won't restore trust. Robert Fisk spoke again from the screen. And the cost? Linda pulled up a spreadsheet. Initial training and implementation, $8.2 million. Annual ongoing compliance and reporting, $3.1 million. But we project customer satisfaction improvements that offset 70% of that cost within 2 years, and we eliminate legal exposure that could run 10 times higher if we do nothing. So we're spending $8 million because our CEO got stopped at a gate? Jennifer Walters' tone was skeptical. Marcus turned to face her directly. No, Jennifer, we're spending $8 million because our employees stopped their CEO at a gate, and nobody knows how many other passengers they've stopped who didn't have the platform to push back. We're spending $8 million because the alternative is being the airline that does nothing while our competitors seize the moral high ground. We're spending $8 million because it's the right thing to do and because doing the right thing happens to also be good business. Silence again. Then Michael Torres, a former airline executive and one of the board's longest-serving members, spoke for the first time. I've been in this industry 40 years. I've seen incidents buried, lawsuits settled quietly, reforms promised but never delivered. What you're proposing, full transparency, public accountability, measurable targets, that's not how this industry operates. I know, Marcus said. That's why we're going to change it. Michael smiled slowly. Good, because if we don't, someone else will, and I'd rather we lead than follow. 3 other board members nodded. The tide was turning. Sarah Cheng looked around the table, reading faces, calculating consensus. It seems we have general support for the approach. I'd like to call a vote on authorizing the proposed reforms and budget allocation. She paused. All in favor? Hands rose, in person and on screen, one by one. 9 in favor. 3 abstentions. 2 opposed. Robert and Jennifer, both looking frustrated but outvoted.
Motion carries, Sarah said. Marcus, you have board authorization to proceed. I expect regular updates on implementation, monthly reports to start, then quarterly once we're in steady state. Marcus nodded. You'll have them. One more thing. Sarah's expression softened slightly. How are you? Personally, I mean. What happened today, it couldn't have been easy. Marcus considered the question. Around the table, faces watched him with genuine concern now, not calculation. Honestly, he said, it was clarifying. It reminded me why I wanted to run an airline in the first place. Not to move planes around, but to move people. To provide service with dignity. And when we fail at that, when our systems reduce human beings to stereotypes and assumptions, we lose the whole point of what we do. He stood, gathering his materials.
"I've been stopped before," he said quietly. "At stores, at hotels, at restaurants. Usually when I'm dressed down, traveling off the clock. It's happened enough that I've learned to carry extra ID, to stay calm, to document. But today was different. Today, I had the power to do something about it. And I realized most people don't have that power. Most people just absorb the humiliation and move on. So if this company, this board, this moment can create a system where the next person doesn't have to be the CEO to get treated with respect, then every second of today's discomfort was worth it." The room remained silent for a long moment. Then Sarah stood. "Thank you, Marcus, for your leadership, for your composure, and for giving us the chance to be part of the solution." She extended her hand. He shook it. One by one, the board members stood. Several approached to offer support. Robert and Jennifer logged off without comment, but the others stayed, asking questions, offering resources, committing to help. It took 20 minutes to clear the room. When the last board member finally left, Marcus and Linda stood alone in the conference room, the presentation still glowing on the wall screen. Linda exhaled slowly. "Well, that could have gone worse." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Could have gone better. 2 no votes isn't bad. You kept the skeptics from becoming opponents. That's a win. The real win happens when we deliver on these promises. We will." Linda's voice was firm. "I'll have implementation teams assembled by tomorrow morning. HR is already drafting new training protocols. Legal is scheduling the demographic audit. We're moving." Marcus checked his watch. 3:47 p.m. Almost 5 hours since he'd been stopped at the gate. It felt like days. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Daniel Reeves, the businessman from the gate. I wanted you to know I submitted my statement to your team. Also wanted to say thank you. My son is starting to travel for work next year. He's black. I'm going to tell him about today. Not the bad part. The part where you stood up and made them listen." Marcus read it twice, then showed it to Linda. She read it and nodded. "That's why we do this." "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. "That's why." At 6:15 p.m., Marcus stood in a small studio on the 35th floor, facing a single camera and a ring light. Behind the camera, a communications specialist named Rachel Kim adjusted audio levels, while Linda watched from the side, tablet in hand. "We're recording in 3, Rachel said. "This is a single take, unedited, straight to publication. Are you ready?" Marcus nodded. He'd changed into a fresh shirt, but kept the same blazer from the flight, a deliberate choice. He wanted people to see continuity, to connect the man in the viral videos with the man taking responsibility now. Rolling in 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. Marcus looked directly into the lens. When he spoke, his voice was calm, measured, the same tone he'd maintained for the entire day.
Good evening. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm the CEO of Apex Aviation Holdings. And this morning, at Gate 34 in Terminal B, I was stopped from boarding a flight I'd paid for, on an airline I own, because 2 employees made assumptions about who I was based on how I looked. He paused, letting the statement land. I want to talk about what happened, why it happened, and what we're going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again, not just at my company, but across this industry. Another pause. His expression was serious but not angry, disappointed but not defeated. The employees who stopped me didn't wake up this morning planning to discriminate. I genuinely believe that. They thought they were following procedure, doing their jobs, protecting the company. But the procedure they followed was built on a foundation of bias, conscious or unconscious, that treats some passengers as inherently more suspicious than others. And when you build bias into your systems, even good people end up doing harmful things. He leaned forward slightly. Here's what happened. I bought a last-minute first-class ticket. That triggered an automated flag in the system. Nothing unusual there. But what happened next was unusual.
Instead of a quick ID verification, I was publicly questioned, asked to step aside, told my ticket didn't look right, and ultimately held at the gate for 17 minutes while other passengers boarded around me. When I asked why, I was told it was protocol. When I provided ID, I was told it wasn't enough. When I showed my corporate card and executive badge, I was still doubted. It wasn't until a phone call to my chief operating officer that I was finally cleared to board. He sat back. Now, some people watching this will say, this is just one incident. It's an anomaly. Don't make it bigger than it is. But it's not an anomaly. It's a pattern. And I know it's a pattern because I've lived it. So have millions of other travelers, black, brown, Muslim, wearing certain kinds of clothing, speaking certain languages. We get stopped more, questioned more, doubted more. And when we ask why, we're told it's procedure, it's protocol, it's policy. His voice remained steady, but something in his eyes intensified. So let me be very clear about something. Procedure is not an excuse for prejudice. Protocol does not justify profiling. And policy, when it's built on bias, needs to be torn down and rebuilt. He paused again, giving the camera and the viewer time to absorb. Today, my company took immediate action. 2 employees were terminated. 3 others were suspended pending investigation. We've initiated a comprehensive audit of every verification stop over the past year, and we're going to publish the results, even if they're damning. We've engaged independent civil rights experts to review our policies. We've established a passenger advocacy hotline, and we've committed $8 million to training, compliance, and transparency initiatives. A slight shift in tone now, from accountability to education. But none of that matters if we don't understand why it happened in the first place. So I want to talk about bias, not as an accusation, but as a reality. He leaned forward again, his posture more conversational now. Bias isn't always hatred. Sometimes it's just shortcuts. Our brains look for patterns to make quick decisions. And in a job like gate agent or security officer, you're making dozens of quick decisions every hour. Who looks right? Who seems off? Who seems off? Who fits? Who doesn't? And if your training, your experience, your environment has taught you that certain kinds of people are more likely to be problems, whether that teaching was explicit or implicit, then you start seeing problems where none exist.
The gate agent who stopped me today probably wasn't thinking, I'm going to discriminate against this person. She was probably thinking, something feels wrong here. Better check. But that feeling, that instinct, it came from somewhere. It was learned, and what's learned can be unlearned. His expression softened just slightly. I don't want to destroy lives over this. I want to change systems. I want the gate agent who stopped me to understand why it was wrong, to receive training that corrects those instincts, and to have a chance, if she earns it, to do better. I want the duty manager who escalated the situation to recognize where his judgment failed and why. And I want every employee at my company and every company in this industry to understand that dignity isn't a perk we extend to passengers who look a certain way or carry a certain status. It's a baseline. It's non-negotiable. He sat back one final time. So here's what I'm asking for. Not just from my company, but from everyone watching. First, if you work in an industry where you have discretionary authority over people, where you can stop them, question them, deny them service, examine your instincts. Ask yourself, would I treat this person the same way if they look different? If the answer is no, or even if you're not sure, that's your signal to pause, to check yourself, to choose differently. Second, if you witness something like what happened to me today, speak up. Several passengers at that gate stood up for me. They offered statements, they recorded video, they made it clear that what was happening was wrong. That mattered. Your witness matters. Third, if you're in a position to change policy at your company, your organization, your institution, do it. Don't wait for a viral video. Don't wait for a lawsuit. Don't wait for someone like me with resources and platform to force your hand. Do it because it's right. He looked directly into the camera now, his gaze steady and unwavering. What happened to me today will happen to someone else tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, unless we decide collectively that we're done accepting it, that we're done explaining it away, that we're done treating dignity like something people have to earn instead of something they inherently possess. A final pause. I'm Marcus Thompson. I'm the CEO of Apex Aviation Holdings, and I'm committed to making my company and this industry better than the moment that happened at Gate 34 this morning. Thank you for listening. The red light blinked off. Rachel lowered the camera. Wow, that was perfect. One take, no edits needed. Linda approached, her eyes slightly wet. That's going to resonate. Marcus exhaled slowly. I hope so. It will, trust me. Linda checked her tablet. We'll publish this across all channels in 30 minutes. I'm predicting 10 million views in the first 24 hours. And if it's more, then you've started a conversation that needed to happen. Marcus nodded. He felt the weight of the day settling on him now. Not just the confrontation at the gate, but the board meeting, the interviews, the decisions made, and the ones still coming. Rachel was already uploading the video, her fingers flying across her keyboard. Metadata tagged, captions embedded, distribution queued. We're ready to publish on your word. Marcus looked at Linda. Any last concerns? None. This is exactly the message we need to send. Then publish it. Rachel hit enter. And within seconds, the video began propagating across the internet. YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It appeared on the company website, in the investor portal, on newswires. The views started climbing immediately. 10,000 in the first minute. 50,000 in 5. By the time Marcus left the building at 7:30 p.m., it had passed 1 million.
Before we proceed, I would love to hear your thoughts. What lesson stands out to you most right now based on the story? Let me know on the comments. 3 days later, on a gray Monday morning, Terminal B at the departure airport looked exactly as it had the previous Thursday. Same fluorescent lighting, same gate configurations, same steady stream of travelers pulling carry-ons and checking phones. But at Gate 34, something was different. A small group had gathered near the podium. Not passengers, not press, just people. Some in airline uniforms, some in business casual, some in the kind of worn travel clothes that suggested they'd been on the road for days. They were there for what the company had announced as a reconciliation briefing, a public acknowledgement of what had happened, delivered in the same space where it had occurred. Marcus stood off to the side, watching the crowd assemble. Linda was beside him, along with David Kim from Legal, Patricia Chen from HR, and Sarah Cheng, who'd flown in from D.C. specifically for this. We're expecting about 50 people, Linda said quietly. Passengers from Thursday's flight who responded to our outreach, gate staff who volunteered to attend, a few press, though we limited credentials, and representatives from 3 civil rights organizations we've engaged as oversight partners. Marcus nodded. And Jennifer Kennedy? She declined the invitation. Ryan Mitchell accepted, but we haven't seen him yet. He'll come, Marcus said. He strikes me as someone who wants to learn from this, even if it's painful. At 9:55 a.m., Patricia stepped to the podium and adjusted the microphone. The crowd quieted. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is Patricia Chen, Vice President of Human Resources for Apex Aviation Holdings. On behalf of the company, I want to welcome you to this briefing and thank you for your willingness to participate in this difficult but necessary conversation. She paused, letting her eyes move across the assembled faces. 4 days ago, at this gate, our company failed. We failed a passenger. We failed our own standards. And we failed the principle that should govern every interaction in this industry, that every person who walks through our doors deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance, their background, or their status. The crowd was completely still. What happened here was documented extensively, by gate cameras, by passenger phones, by news media. You've all seen the videos. Many of you were here. Some of you experienced similar treatment yourselves. And all of you deserve an explanation and an apology. She stepped back and Marcus stepped forward. He dressed simply. Dark slacks, white shirt, no tie. He looked like what he was, a professional trying to have an honest conversation, not deliver a performance. Thank you, Patricia. Marcus's voice carried easily, even without the microphone turned all the way up. I'm Marcus Thompson. Most of you know what happened to me here last Thursday. What you might not know is what's happened since. He clicked a small remote and a screen behind him lit up with a simple slide. Actions taken, 72 hours. Within 3 hours of the incident, we suspended the duty manager and terminated the gate agent who initiated the stop. Within 12 hours, we'd engaged independent civil rights auditors. Within 24 hours, we'd established a passenger advocacy hotline and begun a demographic audit of all verification stops in the past year. Within 48 hours, we drafted new training protocols. And within 72 hours, which is to say as of this morning, we've committed to full transparency in publishing the results of that audit, even if they reveal patterns we're ashamed of. He advanced to the next slide. Preliminary audit findings. I'm going to share something with you that makes me uncomfortable. Over the past 12 months, at this airport alone, we conducted 247 secondary verification stops at gates. Of those 247 stops, 179, that's 72%, involved passengers of color. Black passengers specifically were stopped at a rate 3.4 times higher than their representation in our customer base. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Marcus didn't flinch from it. That's not random chance. That's not coincidence. That's bias embedded in how our systems flag transactions and how our staff respond to those flags, and it's unacceptable. He advanced to the next slide. Systemic changes in progress. Here's what we're doing about it. First, mandatory implicit bias training for all customer-facing staff with annual recertification. Second, removal of subjective language from our verification protocols. No more suspicious, no more doesn't seem right, only objective criteria. Third, real-time demographic tracking of all discretionary stops reviewed quarterly by independent auditors. Fourth, a passenger bill of rights that clearly defines what staff can and cannot request during verification, with escalation procedures if those rights are violated. And fifth, public accountability. We'll publish an annual transparency report showing our numbers, our progress, and our failures. He paused, looking out at the faces watching him. But policy changes aren't enough if we don't change the culture that allowed this to happen. So I want to talk directly to the gate agents, the duty managers, the security staff here today. Several people in uniform shifted uncomfortably. I don't think any of you came to work wanting to hurt people, Marcus said. I think you came to work wanting to do your jobs well, to keep passengers safe, to follow the rules you were given. But somewhere along the way, the rules became a shield for assumptions, and those assumptions caused harm. His voice softened slightly. I need you to understand something. When you stop a passenger and demand additional verification, you're not just delaying them. You're sending a message. You're saying, I don't trust you. I don't believe you belong here. I need proof that you're not a threat or a fraud. And when that message is sent disproportionately to people who look a certain way, it becomes something bigger than one interaction. It becomes a pattern, a culture, a system that tells entire groups of people they're suspect until proven otherwise. He let that settle. So here's what I'm asking. Next time your instinct tells you something's wrong, pause. Ask yourself why you feel that way. Is it based on behavior you've observed or on assumptions you've made? Is it protocol or is it prejudice disguised as protocol? And if you're not sure, err on the side of dignity. Because the cost of stopping someone who didn't need to be stopped is so much higher than you realize. A hand went up in the crowd. A young woman in an airline uniform, maybe mid-20s, nervous but determined. "Yes," Marcus said. "I'm a gate agent. I've worked here for 2 years, and I've made stops like the one you experienced, not because I wanted to discriminate, but because I was trained to look for flags, and I followed that training. But now I'm scared, because I don't know if my instincts are trustworthy anymore. How do I know when I'm being appropriately cautious versus when I'm being biased?" It was a genuine question, asked with genuine vulnerability.
Marcus nodded. That's exactly the right question to ask. And here's my answer. You develop new instincts. You retrain yourself to focus on behavior, not appearance. Does the passenger seem nervous because they're doing something wrong, or because flying makes them anxious? Does their ticket seem off because there's actual evidence of fraud, or because it doesn't match your mental image of who buys first-class tickets? The training we're implementing will help with that. But it starts with awareness, with recognizing that the instincts you've been relying on might have been shaped by biased assumptions. The young woman nodded slowly. "Thank you." Another hand went up. An older black man, not in uniform. "Mr. Thompson, I was on your flight Thursday, seat 7C. I watched what happened to you, and I want to say thank you. But I also want to ask, what happens to people like me who don't have your resources or your platform? How do we get justice when this happens to us?" Marcus met his eyes. That's why we created the Passenger Advocacy Hotline. It's staffed by independent advocates, not company employees, who can investigate complaints, mediate resolutions, and escalate to legal review if necessary. And it's why we're publishing our data publicly. Because if patterns emerge, advocacy groups, lawyers, regulators, they'll all have the evidence they need to hold us accountable. The man considered this, then nodded. "I hope it works." "So do I," Marcus said. "But hope isn't enough. We need to prove it works, and that's going to take time, transparency, and a willingness to be uncomfortable when the data shows we're failing." A woman in the back spoke up without raising her hand. "What about the employees who were fired? Did they get a second chance?" Marcus paused. This was the hardest question. The employee who initiated the stop was terminated because she doubled down even after being presented with contrary evidence. She had multiple opportunities to reassess her judgment and chose not to. That pattern of escalation, combined with language that revealed bias, made her continuation as a customer-facing employee untenable. He took a breath. The duty manager was suspended, not terminated. He's currently undergoing intensive remedial training and will be reviewed for reinstatement after 90 days. If he demonstrates genuine understanding of what went wrong and how to do better, there's a path back. But it has to be earned. And the gate agent, Jennifer Kennedy, do you think she's racist? The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus took his time answering. "I think Jennifer Kennedy made biased decisions. I think she acted on assumptions she may not have even been consciously aware of. Do I think she wakes up every morning planning to discriminate? No. But intention doesn't erase impact. And when the impact is harm, public humiliation, dignity violated, pattern perpetuated, then consequences have to follow." He paused. "Can people change? Absolutely. Should she have the opportunity to unlearn bias and become better? Yes. But not in a customer-facing role at my company. Not until she's done the work to understand why her instincts failed her." The crowd was silent, absorbing this. Sarah Chang stepped forward then, joining Marcus at the podium. "I want to add something as board chair. What Marcus experienced and what this company allowed to happen is being taken seriously at the highest levels. We're not treating this as a PR problem to manage. We're treating it as a failure of leadership, of culture, of accountability. And we're committed to transparency in how we fix it." She looked out at the crowd. In 2 weeks, we'll hold our first public accountability forum. Any passenger, any employee, any community member can attend. We'll present updated audit findings, answer questions, and accept feedback. We'll do this quarterly, and if the data shows we're not improving, we'll face that publicly too. She stepped back.
Marcus returned to the microphone. I know some of you are skeptical. You've heard promises before. You've seen companies release statements and then return to business as usual. I get it. So here's what I'll say. Hold us accountable. If you see backsliding, call it out. If the data shows we're failing, amplify it. If our training doesn't produce results, demand better. Because the only way systemic change happens is if the system knows it's being watched. He glanced at Linda, who nodded. We're going to resume normal operations now. Gate 34 will board flights just like every other gate, but hopefully with a little more awareness, a little more care, and a lot more accountability. He paused. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for giving us the chance to do better. Applause started. Tentative at first, then building. Not everyone clapped. Some faces remained skeptical, arms crossed. But enough people joined in that the sound filled the gate area, echoing off the windows and the high ceiling. As the crowd began to disperse, several people approached Marcus. The businessman from Thursday's flight, Daniel Reeves, shook his hand. My statement's on file. If you need me to testify, I will. Thank you, Daniel. The mother with the 2 children came next. My daughter has been asking about you every day. She wanted me to say she thinks you're brave. Marcus smiled. Tell her courage is just doing the right thing when it's hard. She'll have chances to do that too. The old man with the cane shuffled up, moving slowly but with purpose. I lied to you Thursday. Marcus tilted his head. About what? My son. He hasn't been stopped 3 times this year. He's been stopped 7. But I didn't want to overwhelm you. The old man's eyes were wet. I hope what you're doing works. I really do. Because I'm tired, son. I'm 78 years old, and I'm tired of watching this happen. Marcus put a hand on the man's shoulder. Then let's make sure it stops. For your son, for everyone's son. The old man nodded and moved on. At 11 a.m., Gate 34 resumed normal boarding operations. Flight 523 to Denver, Flight 891 to Chicago, Flight 447 to San Francisco. The same flight number, same route, same gate where everything had started. The gate agent scanning passes was new. Young, black, female, her uniform crisp and her expression professional. She checked boarding passes with efficiency and smiled at passengers as they moved through. No one was stopped. No one was questioned. No one was doubted. Just passengers boarding a plane the way it should always have been. Marcus watched from a distance, then turned to leave. He had a flight of his own to catch, back to Chicago, back to the office, back to the work of turning promises into practice. As he walked through the terminal, his phone buzzed with a notification. The video he'd recorded 3 days ago had passed 23 million views. The hashtag systemic change was trending, and 3 other major airlines had released statements announcing their own bias audits. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. 6 weeks later, Marcus sat in his office on the 34th floor reviewing the first comprehensive audit report. The document was 127 pages long, dense with data, charts, regression analyses, and demographic breakdowns. Linda sat across from him, her own copy open to a page flagged with yellow sticky notes. The numbers don't lie, she said, and they're not pretty. Marcus scanned the executive summary. Secondary verification stops, 12-month analysis. Total stops across all airports, 3,847. Stops involving passengers of color, 2,891, 75%. Stops involving black passengers specifically, 1,456, 37.8% of total stops, 12.3% of customer base. Stops involving white passengers, 956, 24.9% of total stops, 61.2% of customer base. Disparity ratio, black passengers stopped at 4.1 times their population rate.
Marcus set the report down. We publish this exactly as written. No softening, no spin. Legal wants to include contextual footnotes explaining that some stops may have been justified. No, Marcus said firmly, no hedging. We present the data clean and let people draw their own conclusions. If the conclusions are damning, we deserve to be damned. Linda nodded. Publishing Thursday. We'll also release the corrective action plan alongside it. She slid another document across the desk. 90-day progress report, training and policy implementation. Marcus opened it. The first page showed a simple checklist, each item marked either complete, in progress, or pending. V. Implicit bias training modules developed, partnered with Perception Institute. V. All gate staff trained. Wave 1, 847 employees. 367. Regional managers trained. Wave 2, 312 employees. 73% complete. 367. Corporate leadership trained. Wave 3, 89 employees. 61% complete. V. Verification protocols revised. Removed subjective criteria. V. Demographic tracking system implemented. V. Passenger advocacy hotline launched. 142 complaints received, 98 resolved. V. Independent audit partnership formalized. NAACP, ACLU, Lawyers Committee. 367. Quarterly transparency report template drafted, under review. Marcus read through each item carefully. The complaints, how many were substantiated? Linda flipped to a tabbed section. Of the 142 complaints, 41 were substantiated, involving bias or procedural errors. We've issued formal apologies in all 41 cases, provided compensation, and flagged the employees involved for additional training. 3 employees were terminated for repeated violations. And the other 101 complaints? Not substantiated doesn't mean not legitimate. It means we couldn't find sufficient evidence to confirm bias. But we're tracking all of them for pattern analysis. If the same passengers, routes, or airports show up repeatedly, that tells us something, even if individual cases are unclear. Marcus nodded. This was the unglamorous work of systemic change, spreadsheets and audits and tracking systems, not viral videos, not dramatic confrontations, just data, analyzed carefully, acted on consistently. What about external metrics? He asked. Customer satisfaction, complaint rates, brand perception. Linda smiled slightly. You're going to like this part. She pulled up a presentation on her tablet and turned it toward him. Customer satisfaction scores, Q4 versus Q1. Overall satisfaction, plus 4.2 percentage points. Satisfaction among black passengers, plus 11.7 percentage points. Satisfaction among passengers of color, all groups, plus 8.3 percentage points. First-class satisfaction, plus 6.1 percentage points. Ground services satisfaction, plus 9.4 percentage points. Complaint rate changes. Discrimination complaints, minus 38%, though absolute numbers low in both periods. Overall service complaints, minus 12%. Compliments received, plus 23%. Brand perception, external survey. Trustworthy company, plus 14 points. Socially responsible, plus 22 points. Values diversity, plus 19 points. Would recommend, plus 7 points. Marcus studied the numbers. These are significant. They are. And they're translating to revenue. We're seeing increased bookings from corporate clients who specifically cited our transparency initiatives as a factor in renewing contracts. 3 major organizations, including 2 Fortune 500 companies, switched to us from competitors. And stock price? Recovered the initial 3% drop and added another 5%. Investors are responding positively to proactive risk management. Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing. 6 weeks ago, he'd been stopped at a gate, humiliated publicly, forced to prove his identity to board his own company's plane. The easier path would have been to accept a quiet apology, fire the immediate offenders, and move on. Instead, they chose transparency, accountability, systemic reform. And it was working. Not perfectly, not completely, but measurably.
A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Patricia Chen entered holding a tablet. "Marcus, I have the quarterly employee engagement survey results. I thought you'd want to see them immediately." She handed him the tablet. He scanned the data. Employee engagement survey, Q1 results. Participation rate, 87%, up from 72% previous quarter. I feel the company values diversity. 78% agree, up from 61%. I feel equipped to handle difficult customer interactions. 71% agree, up from 58%. I trust leadership to address problems. 81% agree, up from 64%. I'm proud to work here. 76% agree, up from 69%. But one section made him pause. Open-ended feedback themes. Top positive comments. Finally feels like the company is taking diversity seriously. Training was actually useful, not just checkbox compliance. Proud of how leadership handled the Gate 34 incident. Top concerns. Still see some managers resisting the changes. Training is good, but need more ongoing support. Worried about retaliation if I report bias. Marcus highlighted the concerns section. Patricia, that last one, retaliation fears. We need to address that immediately. Already on it. We're implementing a third-party reporting system where employees can flag concerns anonymously. And we're adding retaliation specifically to our zero-tolerance policy. Good. Make sure that's communicated widely. Patricia nodded and left. Linda closed her tablet. You should be proud, Marcus. 2 months ago, we were in crisis mode. Now we're becoming a case study in how to do this right. We're becoming a case study in how to start doing this right, Marcus corrected. There's a long way to go. True, but you've proven something important, that a company can face its failures publicly and come out stronger. That transparency doesn't have to be fatal. That accountability can be good business. Marcus's phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Public Accountability Forum, 2 p.m. He'd almost forgotten. The quarterly forum Sarah Cheng had promised. The first one open to the public, where anyone could attend, ask questions, challenge data, demand answers. You ready for this? Linda asked, seeing the notification. Marcus stood and gathered his materials. As ready as I'll ever be. They headed to the elevator together. As the doors closed, Marcus thought back to that morning at Gate 34, the fluorescent lights, the raised phones, the measured confrontation that had changed everything. Jennifer Kennedy's voice echoed in his memory. Sir, this section isn't for you. 7 words. Based on an assumption. Triggered by bias. Amplified by system failures. 7 words that had forced a reckoning. The elevator descended. 34th floor. 27th, 15th, ground level. The doors opened to a lobby filled with people. Employees, passengers, advocates, journalists, community members. All there for the forum. All there to see if the promises would hold. Marcus stepped out into the crowd and got to work. The auditorium in the Chicago Community Center held 240 people, and every seat was filled. Marcus stood at a simple podium, no corporate branding, no slick presentation graphics, just a microphone and a screen showing real data. This was the 3rd Public Accountability Forum, and the format had evolved. No longer just company announcements. Now it was dialogue, questions from the audience, challenges to the data, stories from passengers and employees, messy, uncomfortable, necessary democracy in action. Marcus clicked to the first slide. 6-month progress by the numbers. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm going to start with what we've accomplished. Then I'm going to talk about where we failed. And then I'm going to open it up for your questions and your testimony. Because this isn't my story to tell alone. It belongs to everyone this system has affected. He advanced the slide. Training completion. 100% of frontline staff certified in implicit bias recognition. 100% of managers certified in equity-based decision-making. 89% of corporate leadership completed advanced modules. 2,847 total employees trained, initial wave. 412 employees recertified after flagged incidents. Policy changes implemented. Objective verification criteria, eliminated subjective language. Real-time demographic tracking at all customer touchpoints. Passenger Bill of Rights posted at every gate. Independent advocacy hotline, 24/7 multilingual. Quarterly external audits, published publicly. Measured outcomes. Secondary verification stops, down 61% overall. Racial disparity in stops, down from 4.1x to 1.8x. Still not acceptable, but improving. Discrimination complaints, down 52%. Customer satisfaction, passengers of color, up 18 percentage points. Employee confidence and reporting bias, up 31 percentage points. The crowd murmured, some nodding approval, others leaning forward to scrutinize the numbers more closely. Marcus paused. Those numbers represent progress, real, measurable progress. But I want to be clear about something. 1.8x disparity is still disparity. Down 52% on discrimination complaints still means complaints are happening. Progress doesn't mean solved. It means we're moving in the right direction, but we're not there yet. He clicked to the next slide, where we failed. A few people in the audience sat up straighter. This wasn't typical corporate presentation material. In the past 6 months, despite all our training and all our protocols, we still had incidents. 17 documented cases where passengers were treated with bias. 11 cases where employees reverted to old patterns. 4 cases where managers failed to intervene when they should have. And 1 case, he paused, where a passenger filed a lawsuit because our response to their complaint was inadequate. He let that settle. We settled that lawsuit with a full apology and compensation. But more importantly, we used it as a learning opportunity. We brought in the passenger, listened to their story, and revised our complaint resolution process based on their feedback. Because failure isn't the end of accountability, it's the beginning of the next iteration. A hand shot up in the third row. A woman, probably in her 50s, wearing a church hat and holding a notepad. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said. "My name is Dolores Washington. I was on a flight 5 weeks ago, Phoenix to Atlanta. I was seated in first class, a birthday gift from my children. And a flight attendant asked me 3 times if I was sure I was in the right seat. 3 times. Even after I showed my boarding pass twice." Her voice was steady, but weighted with exhaustion. "I filed a complaint through your hotline. I got a generic email response and a voucher. Is that what accountability looks like?" The room went silent. Marcus took a breath. "Miss Washington, first, I'm deeply sorry that happened to you. Second, you're right. A voucher is not accountability. May I ask, do you still have your complaint reference number?" She pulled out her phone and read it aloud. Marcus typed it into his tablet. "I'm pulling your file right now." He scanned quickly. "I see your complaint was categorized as resolved after the voucher was issued. That's exactly the kind of inadequate response I was referencing. That should never have been marked resolved without a personal follow-up, without investigating the flight attendant's pattern of behavior, and without you being satisfied with the outcome." He looked up at her. "Here's what I'm going to do. After this forum, I want you to meet with Patricia Chen, our VP of HR. She'll reopen your case, conduct a full investigation, and ensure appropriate action is taken. And I want to use your case in our next training module, with your permission, because it shows how we're still failing at the follow-through." A hand shot up in the third row. A woman, probably in her 50s, wearing a church hat and holding a notepad. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said. "My name is Dolores Washington. I was on a flight 5 weeks ago, Phoenix to Atlanta. I was seated in first class, a birthday gift from my children, and a flight attendant asked me 3 times if I was sure I was in the right seat. 3 times. Even after I showed my boarding pass twice." Her voice was steady, but weighted with exhaustion. "I filed a complaint through your hotline. I got a generic email response and a voucher. Is that what accountability looks like?" The room went silent. Marcus took a breath. "Miss Washington, first, I'm deeply sorry that happened to you. Second, you're right. A voucher is not accountability. May I ask, do you still have your complaint reference number?" She pulled out her phone and read it aloud. Marcus typed it into his tablet. "I'm pulling your file right now." He scanned quickly. "I see your complaint was categorized as resolved after the voucher was issued. That's exactly the kind of inadequate response I was referencing. That should never have been marked resolved without a personal follow-up, without investigating the flight attendant's pattern of behavior, and without you being satisfied with the outcome." He looked up at her. "Here's what I'm going to do. After this forum, I want you to meet with Patricia Chen, our VP of HR. She'll reopen your case, conduct a full investigation, and ensure appropriate action is taken. And I want to use your case in our next training module, with your permission, because it shows how we're still failing at the follow-through."
Dolores Washington studied him for a moment. "And what happens to the flight attendant?" "That depends on what the investigation finds. If this was an isolated incident and they're willing to undergo additional training, there may be a path to correction. If this is part of a pattern, there will be consequences, up to and including termination. But either way, you'll be informed of the outcome. You won't be left wondering." She nodded slowly. "All right, I'll meet with your HR person, but I'm holding you to this." "Please do," Marcus said. "That's why we're here." Another hand went up. A young black man in a hoodie, probably mid-20s. "Yeah, hi. I'm Jamal. I don't work for your airline, and I wasn't on that flight that went viral. But I saw what happened, and I want to know, why should we believe this is real? How do we know this isn't just PR? How do we know that in 6 months, when people stop paying attention, you won't go back to business as usual?" Fair question. Hard question. Marcus met his eyes. "Jamal, you're right to be skeptical. I would be too. Here's what I'll tell you. We've built accountability structures that don't depend on people paying attention. Independent auditors review our data quarterly. Our transparency reports are public and can't be buried. Our employee advocacy systems have third-party oversight. And most importantly, we've tied executive compensation, including mine, to diversity and equity metrics. If the numbers backslide, we lose money. That creates institutional incentive to sustain this, not just perform it." He paused. "But you're also asking a deeper question. Can a corporation fundamentally change, or is this all just theater? And honestly, I don't know yet. What I know is that systems are made of people, and people can change. But only if there's pressure, external and internal, to keep changing. So my answer to you is, don't stop watching. Don't stop challenging. Don't stop demanding proof. Because the moment you look away is the moment we're at risk of slipping back." Jamal nodded, not entirely satisfied, but willing to accept the answer. A white woman in the back row raised her hand. "I'm a gate agent. I've worked for this company for 9 years, and I want to say something that might not be popular." Marcus gestured for her to continue. "The training we received was helpful. I learned things about my own biases that I didn't know were there. But I also feel like some of us are now terrified to do our jobs. I'm scared that if I stop someone, even if there's a legitimate reason, I'll be accused of discrimination. So I second-guess everything. And honestly, that doesn't feel like progress. That feels like paralysis." The room shifted. This was the tension that lived under all of this. The fear that correcting bias would overcorrect into inaction. Marcus nodded. "I appreciate you sharing that. It's a real concern, and here's what I want you to understand. The goal is not to make you afraid to do your job. The goal is to make you intentional about how you do your job. If you stop someone, it should be based on observable behavior or objective criteria, not a feeling, not an assumption. And if you can articulate why you made that decision, if you can point to the specific reason that wasn't based on what someone looks like, then you shouldn't be afraid. He leaned forward slightly. But I also want to acknowledge that this is uncomfortable. Examining your biases is uncomfortable. Changing ingrained habits is uncomfortable. And sometimes you'll get it wrong. That's okay, as long as you're learning from it. The paralysis you're describing often comes from fear of being labeled, fear of making a mistake. So let me be clear, we're not interested in labeling people. We're interested in patterns. One incident, acknowledged and corrected, isn't a career ender. A pattern of incidents, repeated and defended, is different. The gate agent seemed to relax slightly. Okay, that helps.
More hands went up. Marcus spent the next hour fielding questions, listening to stories, acknowledging failures, defending decisions. It was exhausting. It was necessary. At 4:30 p.m., Sarah Chang, who'd been sitting in the front row, stood and joined him at the podium. "I want to add something," she said. "I've been on this board for 6 years. I've chaired it for 3. And in that time, I've watched a lot of companies respond to crises. Most of them do the minimum, issue a statement, fire someone, wait for the news cycle to move on. What Marcus has done, what this company has committed to, is different. It's harder, it's riskier, and it's real." She looked out at the crowd. "But Sarah Chang's endorsement doesn't matter if you don't see results in your own lives. So I'm going to make a promise on behalf of this board. We will continue these forums quarterly, indefinitely. We will continue publishing our data, even when it's unflattering. And we will continue holding ourselves accountable to you, not to shareholders, not to regulators, but to the people our decisions affect most." Applause started, tentative but genuine. Sarah stepped back, and Marcus returned to the microphone for his closing remarks. "Before we end, I want to say one more thing. 6 months ago, I stood at gate 34 and heard someone say, 'This section isn't for you.' That moment could have been the end of the story, a humiliation absorbed, a pattern perpetuated, nothing changed. But because people recorded it, because witnesses spoke up, because you demanded accountability, it became something else. It became a catalyst." He paused. "But catalysts don't matter if they don't lead to reactions. And reactions don't matter if they don't sustain. So the question now isn't whether we responded well to a viral moment. The question is whether we build systems that don't require viral moments to function. Whether we make dignity baseline instead of exceptional. Whether we prove that a company can change, not because it's profitable, though it is, but because it's right." He closed his folder. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for holding us accountable. And thank you for giving us the chance to do better. We'll see you again in 3 months." The crowd rose, some to leave, some to approach the stage with follow-up questions, some to speak with Patricia or Linda or other company representatives positioned around the room. Marcus stepped down from the podium, and immediately Dolores Washington approached with her notepad. "Mr. Thompson, I meant what I said. I'm watching." "Good," Marcus said. "I'm counting on it." The annual transparency report was published on a Tuesday morning in October, exactly 1 year and 3 days after the Gate 34 incident. It was 89 pages long, dense with data, unsparing in its analysis. Marcus sat in his office, reading the executive summary one final time before the press conference. Annual Diversity and Equity Report, Year 1 Summary. Verification stopped disparities. Baseline, 12 months prior, black passengers stopped at 4.1x their population rate. Current, black passengers stopped at 1.2x their population rate. Progress, 71% reduction in disparity. Target, 1x population parity by year 2. Complaint resolution. Discrimination complaints filed, 187, down from 412. Complaints substantiated, 61. Average resolution time, 12 days, down from 34 days. Complainant satisfaction with resolution, 78%, up from 31%. Training impact. 3,241 employees trained, 100% of customer-facing staff. 847 employees recertified after incidents or refresher cycle. Post-training assessment scores, 87% average, minimum passing, 80%. Manager confidence in handling bias situations, up 43 percentage points. Employment actions. Terminations for repeated bias violations, 11. Suspensions with mandatory retraining, 34. Employees successfully returned after remediation, 28, 82. New hires trained pre-deployment, 412. Financial impact. Investment in training and systems, $8.7 million. Legal settlements for discrimination claims, $340K, down from $2.1 million previous year. Customer acquisition from diversity initiatives, estimated $14 million additional revenue. Net positive impact, $5.6 million. External recognition. Named Best Place to Work for Diversity by Diversity, Inc. Featured in Harvard Business Review case study on corporate accountability. Adopted by 7 other airlines as template for their own reforms. Invited to present at congressional hearing on aviation equity. Marcus set down the report. The numbers told a story, not of perfection, but of progress. Not of arrival, but of movement. His phone buzzed. A text from Linda. Press is assembled, ready when you are. He stood, straightened his tie, and headed to the conference room. The press conference was different from the last one. No crisis, no viral moment. Just a routine annual report release. Except nothing about this report was routine. Marcus stood at the podium, cameras clicking, reporters' recorders running. Good morning. 1 year ago, I was stopped at gate 34 and told I didn't belong in first class. Today, I'm here to report on what we've done about it. He clicked through the slides, data, outcomes, failures, goals. He answered questions for 45 minutes. Some were hostile, some were supportive, all were direct. A reporter from a major newspaper asked, Mr. Thompson, critics say you've turned a personal grievance into a publicity stunt. How do you respond? Marcus didn't blink. I'd say, look at the numbers. Look at the passengers who filed complaints and got actual resolutions. Look at the employees who received meaningful training instead of checkbox compliance. Look at the other airlines who've adopted our model. If that's a publicity stunt, I hope more companies stunt the same way. Another reporter. What happens if the numbers plateau? What if you can't get to full parity? Then we'll report that honestly and adjust our strategies. But we won't accept plateau as acceptable. 1.2x disparity is better than 4.1x, but it's still disparity. The work continues until the work is done. A third reporter. Do you consider this a success? Marcus paused. I consider this a beginning. Success will be when a black passenger can board any flight without wondering if they'll be stopped. Success will be when employees don't need viral videos to motivate them to treat people with dignity. Success will be when this report is boring because equity is normal. We're not there yet. The press conference ended. The reporters filed out, and Marcus returned to his office, where Linda was waiting with a bottle of sparkling water and a smile. Well done, she said. It's just data. It's a year of work. It's accountability delivered. It's proof that saying you'll change and actually changing are the same thing, at least in this case. Marcus opened the sparkling water and took a sip. Through his office window, he could see the city skyline, Glass towers catching afternoon light. Planes tracing contrails across blue sky. His phone buzzed again. An email from an unfamiliar address. Subject line, "Thank you." He opened it. "Mr. Thompson, you don't know me. My name is Kevin Harris. I'm a 28-year-old black man who travels for work about twice a month. I've been stopped at gates 11 times in the past 3 years. Always the same pattern. Can I see your boarding pass again? This ticket seems irregular. Let me verify something. Always humiliating, always exhausting. Last week, I flew on your airline for the first time. I bought a first-class ticket with my own money, and I waited at the gate, tense, expecting the usual questions. They never came. I boarded normally. The gate agent smiled and said, "Have a great flight, Mr. Harris." That's it. No extra scrutiny, no suspicion, just normal. I cried in my seat, not because something extraordinary happened, but because something ordinary did. And I realized how rare that's become.
Thank you for making it possible. Thank you for doing the work. And thank you for proving that things can actually change. Kevin, Marcus read it twice. Then he forwarded it to Linda, to Patricia, to Sarah, to the entire executive team. He added one line, "This is why we do it." The narrator's voice, calm, reflective, the through line of this entire story, returns now for a final reflection. 1 year, 12 months, 52 weeks, 365 days. That's how long it took to move from crisis to system, from reaction to routine, from a viral moment to institutional change. Not long enough to call it solved, long enough to call it started. Marcus Thompson didn't set out to become a symbol. He set out to board a plane. But when the system failed him, he had a choice: absorb it quietly or expose it publicly. He chose exposure, and that choice cascaded into consequences, some immediate, some still unfolding. 2 employees lost their jobs. 34 were suspended and retrained. 28 came back better. 11 didn't learn and were terminated for repeated violations. 3,000 were trained. Hundreds of thousands of passengers experienced better service. 7 other airlines adopted the model. Dozens of organizations used the blueprint. And one man named Kevin Harris boarded a plane without being questioned. That's the measure of it. Not headlines, not stock prices, not awards, just normal. Just dignity, just the baseline experience that should have existed all along. But here's what you need to understand. This didn't happen because Marcus Thompson is the CEO. It happened because passengers recorded it, because witnesses spoke up, because you, whoever you are, wherever you're watching, live in a world where accountability can be crowdsourced, where silence is a choice, and where speaking up might actually matter. So here's the question. What will you do the next time you see this happen? Will you record it? Will you speak? Will you offer water to someone standing alone while the system decides whether they belong? Or will you look away, assume someone else will handle it, and let the pattern continue? The screen fades to a simple text card. Have you faced or witnessed something like this? Share your story below. Someone else may need to hear it. Another card. Suggest the next story theme. I'll feature the top comment in the next upload. A final card. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe to True Justice. Real stories, real accountability, real change. One more thing. Marcus Thompson still flies commercial, still books his own tickets, still walks through terminals like any other passenger. But now, when he reaches the gate, when he hands over his boarding pass, when the agent scans it and looks up, the system works the way it should, not because he's the CEO, but because the system was fixed. That's the story.
Not that one man got justice, but that one moment of injustice became the reason thousands of people won't face the same thing. That's what accountability looks like. That's what change looks like. And that's why these stories matter. Thank you for watching. Thank you for witnessing. And thank you for refusing to accept that things have to stay the way they've always been. See you in the next one.